Thomas was an old man who lived alone in a crumbling wooden house on the edge of a forgotten countryside road. His days were quiet, filled with the ticking of clocks, the creak of floorboards, and the occasional groan of the wind slipping through broken shutters. The walls around him were heavy with memories, pictures of his wife, long gone, and of his son, Michael, whose life had ended tragically decades ago. For years, Thomas carried the weight of silence, until one night that silence was broken by a sound that would unravel his world. At the stroke of midnight, just as the clock chimed 12, came a slow, deliberate knock at the front door. Startled, Thomas rose from his chair, his lantern casting trembling shadows against the wall. He opened the door, expecting perhaps a lost traveler or a cruel prank. But the porch was empty. Only the cold air greeted him. He shut the door, muttering that it must have been the wind. But the following night, at the exact same time, the knock returned. 3 slow, heavy thuds that echoed through the stillness of his house. Again, when he opened it, no one was there. Yet the sound was too real to ignore. Night after night, the knocking came, always at midnight, always followed by emptiness. The old man's unease grew. He began setting traps, placing a chair against the door, keeping his shotgun close, even waiting beside the entry with a lantern ready. Still, the knocks came, mocking his efforts. They grew louder, sharper, and sometimes he thought he heard scratching, as though tiny hands dragged across the wood. Other nights he swore he could hear the shuffle of bare feet on the porch, pacing, waiting. Fear lodged itself in his chest, but so did curiosity. One night he flung the door open the moment the first knock came, and what he found made his blood run cold. Muddy footprints, small, child-size, leading away into the darkness of the forest. From that night forward, the evidence of his tormentor grew. Footprints that vanished after only a few steps, windows that revealed tiny handprints in the dust, faint laughter carried by the wind. Desperate, Thomas went to the sheriff, but his story was dismissed as the ramblings of an old man, perhaps tricked by mischievous children. But there were no children anywhere near these woods. Alone again, Thomas returned to his home, where the knocking grew bolder. At midnight, he began to hear whispers, faint and broken, calling his name from beyond the door. Haunted, Thomas's nights filled with dreams of Michael, his little boy standing at the threshold, dripping wet, his voice fragile as he whispered, "Let me in, Father." The dreams were so vivid that he woke in tears, only to hear the same knocks waiting for him in the waking world. He started keeping a diary to prove he wasn't going mad. Each entry was more frantic than the last. Day 12, the knocks were faster tonight. Day 13, I saw small hands pressed against the window. Day 14, he called my name again. Sleep abandoned him. He boarded the windows, but still, the knocks moved inside the walls, crawling closer to his very room. One night, trembling but determined, Thomas whispered into the dark, "Michael, if it's you, give me a sign." The knocking stopped, and for a moment, the silence was worse than the sound. Then slowly the front door creaked open by itself. On the porch, illuminated by the pale moonlight, sat a pair of small, muddy shoes. Thomas froze. His knees gave way beneath him. He knew those shoes. They were the same ones his son had been wearing the day he drowned so many years ago. With shaking hands, he picked them up, and they were not old, not rotted with time. They were wet, heavy with fresh mud, as if worn just minutes earlier. The weight of guilt crushed him. He remembered the night of the accident. He had been drinking, careless, while his son played near the river. He had dozed off, waking only to the sound of water and screams too late to save the boy. He had buried that memory under silence, under years of isolation, but now it returned with claws. That night, as he held the shoes, a voice filled his house, A whisper, brittle yet sharp. "Why did you leave me, Father?" Thomas fell to his knees, sobbing, confessing to the emptiness that had consumed him, to the guilt that had never left. The air grew colder. The door slammed shut, rattling the walls. The shoes slipped from his hands and began to move across the floor on their own, the soft patter of footsteps echoing through the room. Thomas turned, his lantern flickering wildly, and in the corner he saw a silhouette, a child's figure, dripping wet, its head tilted, its voice broken as it whispered, "Come with me, Father." The light went out. The house was swallowed by darkness. By morning, the sheriff came to check on the old man. The door was ajar, the house empty. Dust floated in the stale air, as though no one had lived there for years. But on the porch sat the muddy shoes, damp with fresh soil. Beside them, a new set of footprints had appeared. Not small ones this time, but larger, adult size, pressed deeply into the mud. They led away from the house, side by side with the tiny prints, into the mist of the forest. The sheriff followed them for a short while, but the path disappeared among the trees. From the distance came a faint, hollow sound. 3 slow knocks, then silence. And from that day forward, no one ever saw Thomas again. But those who passed by that lonely house swore they sometimes heard it too. The knocking at midnight, always at midnight, as though someone was still waiting to be let inside.